But one of the great things about November 1st is that a Halloween candy is now 50% off. Today, of course, the great event is All Saints' Day, November 1st, that beautiful day in which we honor all the saints. One of my favorite stories was about two brothers over in Ireland from a small village, and they were holy terrors. For 25 years, they drove Father Murphy crazy, always getting into trouble, being in the pubs every night, staying out, getting arrested, and just being nuisances. And this went on for 25 years, and eventually Pat died. His brother Mike went to make the funeral arrangements with Father Murphy. He wanted a Catholic funeral for his brother. Father Murphy was a bit reluctant because he had never gone to church and was always a problem, but he reluctantly agreed. And then Mike says, "Father, one more thing. During the funeral homily, I want you to tell everyone in the village that my brother Pat was a saint." Father Murphy said, "I'm not sure if I can do that, but let me think about it. I'll see what I can do." Well, the funeral homily began like this. "We all know that Pat never went to church. He was always in the pubs drinking and causing problems in the village. But compared to his brother Mike, Pat was a saint." Today we want to look at what is a saint. Well, of course, the saints are the friends of God. The saints are really our friends in high places. They're the ones that intercede for us. They are that cloud of witnesses that's referred to in the New Testament. They intercede for us. They pray for us, and we follow their example as they're our role models. A definition of a saint really is anyone who has made it to heaven, anyone who now sees God face to face. And not just the canonized saints, but also those who are uncanonized. There's actually only about 10,000 canonized saints in the Catholic Church, and yet we believe that there are millions, God willing, billions of people in heaven seeing God face to face. And we see this in the book of Revelation. We just read that reading where John had a glimpse of heaven, where he saw a great multitude which no one could count. People from all nations and tribes and people and tongues standing before the throne in the sight of the Lamb, who of course is Christ, clothed with white robes. Those who make it to heaven are washed in the blood of Christ. The blood of Christ is our detergent against sin that makes our baptismal robes white, and holding palm branches in their hands. Palm branches are a sign of victory. And so we see that really a definition of a saint are those who made it to heaven, both those canonized and uncanonized. So God willing, maybe our grandparents, our parents, those that have gone before us, if they're in heaven, then they are truly saints, even though they might not yet not be canonized. Other beautiful definitions of a saint is someone who did the will of God in their life, who fought the good fight, who ran the race, who kept the faith. And I love Peter Kreeft's definition of a saint. He said, "A saint is a sinner who never gave up. A saint is a sinner who kept on trying, and who God's grace has transformed and brought to the kingdom of heaven." Once there was a little girl in church and in a religious education class, and the teacher said, "What is a saint?" And the little girl looked up and saw the beautiful stained glass windows with the light coming through. She said, "I know what a saint is. A saint is someone through whom God's light shines through." What a beautiful definition of a saint. So really a saint is those who resemble Christ. That's why we're on earth, is to become like Jesus, to become Christ-like, to have Jesus live his life within us. As St. Paul says, "It's no longer I, but Christ who lives in me." So a saint is someone who allows Jesus to grow within them. And really, when you look at the lives of the saints, you see that the saints really reflect the different facets of the Lord's life. Just like a diamond, you can look at a diamond, the different facets. You can see the different facets of the Lord's life in the lives of the saints. For example, think of Jesus when he was a young boy, the youthful Christ. Well, we have saints who were very young. St. Agnes died at the age of 12, was martyred for the faith. St. Dominic Savio was 14, Maria Goretti gave her life as a virgin martyr. Then you have saints. Think about the hidden life of Christ. From the age of 13 to 30, Jesus lived a very hidden life of prayer and carpentry work. And we also have saints that reflect the hidden life of Christ. Think of the hermits or the cloistered nuns. St. Anthony of the desert lived in the desert for 50 years. St. Therese, the little flower, lived in her Carmel monastery. St. Catherine Labouré, St. Teresa of Avila, John of the Cross, St. Margaret Mary, who received the message of the Sacred Heart. These were all really contemplatives, cloistered, who lived, we can say, a hidden life. Or you think of Christ the teacher. Christ the teacher, you think of, are some of the great preachers in the history of the church, like a St. Augustine, or St. Dominic, or St. Robert Bellarmine, or St. John Chrysostom, Louis de Montfort, the great missionaries and teachers. And then you have Jesus, the good shepherd, the pastor. And we think of the wonderful priests who were such good pastors of souls, like St. John Vianney, the patron saint of parish priests, or St. Vincent de Paul, who would go out every morning and pick up the abandoned babies and the children lying in the streets of Paris. Or St. Anthony Mary Claret, who was a missionary to Cuba. And then lastly, think of the sufferings of Jesus. Well, Christ is the King of Martyrs. Think of those saints who reflected the sufferings of Jesus, like St. Lawrence, who was roasted alive on the gridiron, or St. Stephen the deacon, who was stoned to death in the Acts of the Apostles, or St. Maximilian Kolbe, who gave his life in Auschwitz for a man he did not even know. So all the saints really are reflections of the life of Christ. It's Jesus living his life within each of these saints. And so what I'd recommend on this feast day of All Saints is that we every day try to read something about the lives of the saints, and also go on YouTube and type in your favorite saint and watch the YouTube talks and sermons and wonderful documentaries about any of these saints. Well, where do you start? There's 10,000 saints. Well, I'd recommend starting with the saints that you're named after. Maybe your first name is a saint's name, or your middle name's a saint's name, or certainly your confirmation name is a saint's name. So begin there. Go back to those names that your parents chose for you. For example, my first name is Francis, so I can read the life of Francis of Assisi, or Francis de Sales, or Francis Xavier. I was actually named after Frank Duff, the founder of the Legion of Mary, who was also on his way to become a saint. My middle name was Joseph, and I was born the day before St. Patrick's Day. My mom and dad skipped over St. Patrick and went right to St. Joseph, because that was one of their favorite saints. And then for confirmation, I took John the Apostle, John the Evangelist, because he was very much devoted to our Blessed Mother and the Eucharist and the Sacred Heart. So that's where I could begin in continuing to learn more about those saints and asking their intercession. So ask yourself, have you gone back to really research your confirmation saint, or who you're named after in your first or middle name? And then don't forget to, whatever your vocation is in life, your job. Let's say if you're a lawyer, then I would recommend reading the life of St. Thomas More. Also, if you're involved in politics, you can read about King Stephen of Hungary, or Margaret of Scotland, or any of those who were in the public service. Or maybe you're a doctor. You can read about St. Luke or St. Cosmas and Damian. That would be your patron saint. A nurse, St. Camillus. A teacher, you can read the life of Mother Seton. So these are our great friends in high places, and we should ask them to pray for us, because they were men and women just like ourselves. Some were single, some were married, some were priests, some were nuns. They had all different vocations in life. Let's ask their intercession and follow them as role models and follow their great example, because if they made it to heaven, if we do what they did, we too can make it to heaven one day and be remembered in All Saints' Day in the future.